What if I told you that a simple copper-colored coin you might have overlooked in your change pocket could secretly hold the power to change your life forever? A single 1989 DUSA 1-cent coin that most people would dismiss as being worth only a penny actually rumored to carry a staggering face value of $28 million because of its incredible rarity, mysterious history, and the errors and mistakes that make it stand out in the world of numismatics. And today we dive into the astonishing story of this coin, exploring every angle of its background, its minting process, the hidden mistakes that set it apart, and the way collectors and historians alike view it as one of the most fascinating and valuable pennies in history. Because while to the untrained eye it may look like just another piece of spare change from a grocery store or tucked into an old jar at home, in reality this tiny coin could be a jackpot in disguise, a symbol of how small overlooked details in American minting history sometimes explode into astronomical worth. And to understand why this 1989 D penny is considered so valuable, we need to first step back into the context of the late 1980s, when the US Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents across its various branches including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with Denver marked by the small d mint mark under the date on the obverse just beneath Lincoln's portrait. And while most 1989 D cents rolled off the presses normally, a handful came out with strange errors like double dies, off-center strikes, planchette flaws, and other anomalies that made them the rare outliers collectors now hunt for. Because in the vast sea of mass-produced coins, the errors are what create the goldmine, those tiny imperfections that mean a coin does not look or weigh or align exactly as intended. And when a collector finds one of these, it can skyrocket the value far beyond its tiny face value. And this is where the legend of the $28 million penny comes in, because enthusiasts and numismatic researchers began pointing out that certain examples from 1989 D had an array of bizarre mistakes, from lettering that seemed doubled or misaligned to rims that were uneven or clipped, to mint marks that looked repunched or slanted strangely, all of which add to the lore that some versions of this coin are unlike any other. And what makes it even more compelling is the sheer volume of coins struck in 1989, because out of billions produced, only a handful with such unusual characteristics could survive undetected, creating a sense of lottery-like odds for those scouring through old collections, spare jars, or inherited boxes of coins, because you never really know when one penny could transform into a life-changing fortune. And many stories circulate of collectors and casual people discovering coins that went from being pocket change to being auctioned for hundreds of thousands, even millions, and the 1989 D penny has become a centerpiece in these stories, with claims of examples being valued at tens of millions because of their absolute rarity and the frenzy they create among high-end collectors willing to pay whatever it takes to secure such a coin. And when we think about why this number, $28 million, gets attached to this coin, it isn't just about one single transaction but about the way collectors hype, value, and mythologize certain rare finds. Because in the numismatic world, rarity is king, and rarity fueled by error only multiplies the desirability. And so the 1989 D penny sits in this fascinating space where ordinary becomes extraordinary, where a small overlooked piece of American currency is elevated to legendary status. And to truly appreciate it, you have to imagine the scene at the Denver Mint in 1989, presses churning day and night, dies wearing down, machinery misaligning ever so slightly, workers missing a small shift in placement, all contributing to the potential birth of a multi-million-dollar error coin. And while most pennies minted that year ended up in circulation, worn down through decades of use, the rare error survivors became like hidden diamonds scattered among common rocks, and collectors today hunt for them with magnifying glasses, scales, and expert eyes, because spotting that one off-center strike or double die could mean instant fortune. And beyond the physical details of the coin itself, there is the cultural and historical significance, because the 1980s were a transitional time in US coinage, moving from earlier compositions to the modern zinc-based cents coated in copper, and this shift introduced its own set of problems like improper bonding of layers, zinc rot, and plating bubbles, all of which could contribute to unique errors that make surviving examples particularly intriguing. And when you take all this into account, the minting process, the errors, the survival rate, and the frenzy of collector interest, it isn't hard to see why stories of a $28 million penny persist, because whether fact, rumor, or myth, the allure of hidden treasure in everyday change is irresistible. And for every person who has ever wondered if the coins in their pocket might be worth more than face value, this story captures the imagination, reminding us that history, rarity, and human fascination with collecting all collide in something as small as a single cent. And that is why collectors say never overlook your pennies, because in one of them could be hidden a piece of history worth more than mansions, cars, or even empires. And as you reflect on the incredible story of the 1989 D1 cent coin with its rumored face value of $28 million, consider how the most unassuming objects sometimes hold the greatest surprises. And this is your invitation to check your own change, to look closer at what others dismiss, because fortune often hides in the details. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most fascinating and valuable coins in history, then make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel for more amazing discoveries, and join us next time as we uncover even more hidden treasures from the world of coins and currency that prove sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest value. Next, we dive deep into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a tale that blends history, minting technology, mistakes, collector enthusiasm, and the unexpected rise of an ordinary-looking 1992 United States 1 cent coin to a staggering value of $7 million, a coin that has captured the imagination of collectors, investors, and curious history buffs alike. Because how could a coin that most people use daily for small transactions like buying a piece of candy, making change at the grocery store, or tossing into a jar on the dresser suddenly become a fortune bringer for the lucky person who happened to hold onto it? And the answer lies in the unusual world of minting errors and mistakes, those tiny imperfections that usually slip past unnoticed but sometimes, just sometimes, turn a common cent into a legendary treasure. So let's embark on this long and detailed journey, unpacking not only what makes the 1992 1 cent coin so valuable but also the history of the penny itself, the minting process, the specific errors and mistakes that occurred that year, and why collectors are willing to pay millions for what appears at first glance to be just another copper-plated zinc coin in their pocket change. And to start this journey, it helps to first step back in time and remember the history of the American cent. Introduced in 1793 and evolving through many designs, from the flowing hair and liberty cap designs to the Indian head cents of the 19th century, and then the iconic Lincoln cent, first issued in 1909 to mark the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, a design that became one of the most recognizable coins in the world. And over the decades, the Lincoln cent has gone through subtle but significant changes, including the reverse design which carried the wheat ears until 1959, then the Lincoln Memorial through 2008, and later the shield reverse. And the composition itself changed as well, especially in 1982 when the mint shifted from mostly copper cents to copper-plated zinc cents, a change that would prove important in the world of mint errors because the thinner copper plating made it easier for defects and oddities to appear. And by the early 1990s, millions upon millions of these cents were being struck at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, flooding into circulation. And yet within this sea of ordinary coins, a few rare varieties were born, including the 1992 Close AM variety, one of the most famous and valuable penny varieties ever discovered. And this is the very coin we are talking about today, the one that has been known to bring multi-million-dollar price tags because of a tiny but dramatic minting detail. And here is where the story becomes fascinating, because the typical 1992 Lincoln cent has the words United States of America and below that the denomination 1 cent with the Lincoln Memorial design. And between the letters A and M in the word America there is normally a noticeable space, a wide separation that matches the style used for circulating coins of that period. But in a handful of 1992 cents struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, the dies used were accidentally prepared with the Close AM design intended for proof coins, meaning the A and M nearly touch with almost no gap between them. And this subtle but major difference became the defining feature that elevated these coins to legendary status. And when collectors began spotting them, they realized they had stumbled upon one of the rarest Lincoln cent varieties, with perhaps only a few dozen known to exist across both mints. And rarity combined with collector demand is what drives the astronomical values we see today, leading to public auction sales of these coins in the tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, and private sales and speculative valuations pushing the idea that a flawless, uncirculated 1992 Close AM penny could fetch as much as $7 million if the right buyer and circumstances aligned. And that valuation makes sense once you understand the psychology of coin collecting, because collectors are not just paying for the metal content, which is only a fraction of a cent, but rather for the story, the rarity, the mistakes that should not exist but do, and the bragging rights of owning something that only a handful of people in the world could ever hope to possess. And when you think about it, the 1992 1 cent coin teaches us a lot about the minting process itself, because the creation of dies involves multiple stages including design preparation, hubbing, and polishing, and sometimes proof dies or experimental dies accidentally get mixed into regular production, and while the mint has strict quality control procedures, the sheer scale of production, billions of coins struck each year, means that mistakes slip through, and for the average person these mistakes are invisible. Just another penny to spend, but for a sharp-eyed collector they are opportunities worth life-changing sums, and one of the reasons the 1992 Close AM penny is so highly valued is because it represents a transitional variety, bridging the gap between different design standards, and transitional errors are especially prized because they tell a story of change at the mint, a story of human oversight and the blending of old and new methods. And as we explore why collectors prize these coins, we must also consider the psychology of rarity, because in the world of numismatics, rarity combined with demand is everything, and a coin can be rare but if no one cares it holds little value. But when a coin is both rare and highly sought after, the bidding wars can push prices to unbelievable heights, and the 1992 cent has all the ingredients: extreme rarity, a connection to the iconic Lincoln design, a well-documented error type, and a mystique that drives collectors to dream of finding one in their pocket change. And while the odds are astronomical, it does happen that people unknowingly spend or receive rare coins in everyday transactions, leading to stories of lucky finds at banks, in coin rolls, or even in old jars passed down through families, and those stories only fuel the legend, making more people check their pennies, which in turn heightens demand and raises values further. And if we dig deeper into the technical side, the Close AM variety is just one of several design anomalies in the Lincoln Cent series, with others including the wide AM varieties of 1998, 1999, and 2000, and these varieties create a rich field of study for collectors who pore over their coins with magnifying glasses and microscopes, searching for that magical combination of date and design. And the 1992 Close AM remains at the top of that pyramid because of its scarcity and its reputation as one of the most valuable modern Lincoln cents. And to understand why its valuation has been suggested as high as $7 million, we need to think not just about the coin market but also about the art and collectibles market in general, where wealthy buyers sometimes pay staggering sums for items of historical importance, and in that sense the 1992 Close AM cent has become more than just a coin. It is a cultural artifact, a symbol of how mistakes and human error can create unexpected treasures, and it represents the thrill of the hunt, the dream that anyone could stumble upon a $7 million fortune in their pocket change, and this dream drives more people into the hobby, fueling more demand, and raising the value ceiling higher and higher. And if we step back and reflect, this single coin tells us a broader story about human nature, about how we value rarity, uniqueness, and history, and how we attach meaning to objects that carry these qualities. And when you imagine holding such a coin, you are not just holding a penny. You are holding a story of 1990s minting technology, of numismatic discovery, of collector obsession, and of human error turned into human fortune. And this is why the 1992 1-cent coin is worth not just its face value but potentially $7 million, a staggering number that continues to fascinate the world. And as we wrap up this journey, remember to always check your change, because treasures often hide in plain sight, and one day you might be the lucky person who finds a coin that changes your life forever. So if you enjoyed exploring this incredible story and want to learn more about rare coins, numismatic treasures, and the hidden value of everyday money, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more amazing discoveries that show how history, mistakes, and a little bit of luck can turn ordinary coins into extraordinary fortunes. Last, we dive deep into one of the most fascinating and surprising stories in the world of coins, a story that begins with what most people would dismiss as an ordinary pocket change penny but turns into a jaw-dropping treasure worth millions, because the 1997 D1-cent coin, struck in Denver, is not just a common copper-plated zinc cent but one that has captured the attention of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters due to its unbelievable rarity, its errors, its mistakes, and the strange series of circumstances that transformed this tiny coin into something valued at around $4 million. And as we journey through the details, you'll understand exactly why these coins matter, why they are worth big money, and why you might want to start looking more carefully at the pennies rattling around in your change jar, because the 1997 D penny holds stories of minting anomalies, overlooked mistakes, and possibilities that can make even seasoned numismatists shake their heads in disbelief. And what makes it especially fascinating is how such a coin, produced in the millions at the Denver Mint in 1997, could have rare versions so unusual that collectors are willing to pay extraordinary amounts. So let's begin by understanding the context of this coin's creation. The 1997 D penny was struck during a period when the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies annually, most of them composed of copper-plated zinc, with the familiar design of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been in circulation since 1959, yet despite this massive production, only a few examples escaped the mint with flaws so dramatic or so subtle that they became legendary, and that is the case with the 1997 D penny worth $4 million, as errors and mistakes in coins are what fuel the fire of numismatic excitement. Because errors can range from double dies, off-center strikes, planchette errors, repunched mint marks, broad strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, die cuts, and even wrong planchette strikes, all of which can turn a coin that costs a cent to produce into one that collectors will pay small fortunes to acquire. And in the case of the 1997 D penny, several different types of errors are rumored to exist, with the most valuable involving double dies on the obverse where Abraham Lincoln's portrait appears, as doubling can make the details of Lincoln's profile, his beard, his eyes, or even the word Liberty and the date 1997 look like they have a shadow or extra impression, which makes the coin rare, while some versions of the coin show repunched mint marks where the D for Denver was struck more than once, leaving behind a ghostly second impression that excites collectors. But even beyond these, there are stories of dramatic off-center strikes where Lincoln's head is only partly visible, with blank spaces covering a large part of the coin. And there are tales of wrong planchette errors where a penny design was accidentally struck on a dime or nickel planchette, producing a coin that weighs differently and has a strange appearance, and such coins, being anomalies, can fetch thousands or even millions depending on their condition, rarity, and demand. And when we consider why a 1997 D penny could be valued at $4 million, we realize that it is not only about the error itself but also the combination of scarcity, collector demand, and the almost mythical stories that surround these coins, because when a coin is known to exist in only one or two examples, or when its error is so dramatic that it challenges the very idea of how coins are produced, the numismatic market responds with feverish bidding, and this is exactly what has made the 1997 D penny worth millions. Now think about how many of these pennies were produced in Denver in 1997, billions of coins poured out of the presses. Yet in that vast sea of copper-plated zinc only a handful contained errors so striking that they are now treated as treasures, which shows us that the laws of probability sometimes create wonders, and while most people spent these pennies without a second thought, a few collectors and lucky individuals stumbled upon them, recognized their uniqueness, and preserved them long enough for their value to skyrocket. And to really appreciate this, we must look closer at the culture of coin collecting, because collectors prize coins that tell stories, coins that show mistakes frozen in metal, coins that represent the fallibility of machines and humans in an age when precision is expected, and the 1997 D penny is a perfect example. It tells us that even in the modern minting process where technology rules, mistakes slip through, and those mistakes become priceless artifacts. Now when you hear that a penny could be worth $4 million, it sounds like a rumor or urban legend. But the reality is that rare error coins have indeed sold for millions, and the marketplace for them is strong, because collectors compete fiercely to own a piece of history that no one else has. And in the case of the 1997 D, the coin's value is driven not just by its error but also by the fascination around its scarcity and the growing recognition of modern error coins in the numismatic community. And as we examine the possibilities, we see that errors like double dies often escape notice until much later, sometimes decades later, because they might look subtle and less magnified, and this delayed recognition increases the mystery. And with the 1997 D penny, its fame only grew as collectors began sharing stories of unusual examples surfacing in circulation, being discovered in change, or hidden away in rolls of pennies that had gone untouched for years, and each story added to the legend, making people search harder and dream bigger. Because the allure of finding a coin worth millions in your pocket is irresistible, and we cannot ignore the importance of condition in all of this. Because even the rarest error loses value if it is heavily worn, scratched, or damaged, so the 1997 D pennies that command astronomical prices are usually in high grades, sometimes uncirculated or with sharp, clear details of the error, making them stand out, and the combination of rarity, error type, and condition explains how such a coin could be appraised at $4 million, and imagine holding such a coin. knowing it looks like an ordinary penny to the untrained eye, but in reality it holds the power to change someone's life. That is the magic of numismatics, the blending of history, error, and chance. And as we dig deeper, we must also talk about other famous pennies to understand the 1997 ADS value, like the 1943 copper penny worth hundreds of thousands, the 1955 double die penny famous for its dramatic lettering, and the 1972 double die, all of which prepared the stage for modern collectors to appreciate the errors of later years. So by 1997, when the Denver Mint produced these rare anomalies, the community was ready to recognize and value them, and the story only grows more captivating when we consider how few may exist, possibly only one or two of the million-dollar examples, making them more valuable than gold ounce for ounce. And this rarity is why collectors pursue them relentlessly, and as more people learn about them, the competition intensifies, pushing values even higher. So in truth, the 1997 AD penny worth for million is not just a coin, it is a symbol of chance, rarity, and the human fascination with finding treasure in the most unexpected places. And now, as we bring this deep dive together, remember that the 1997 AD penny teaches us to look closer, to pay attention to details, because even the smallest coin can hide a fortune, and with billions of pennies circulating, who knows what treasures might still be out there, waiting in a jar, a drawer, or a pocket. So the next time you see a penny from 1997 with the Denver Mint mark, take a closer look, because you never know if you might be holding one of the rarest and most valuable coins in American history. And thank you for joining us on this journey into the mystery of the 1997 AD penny worth for $1 million. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about coins, treasures, and history hidden in plain sight, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another fascinating discovery.